All right, back again. This time with some more Breya. So I have a few adjustments to the deck. One of the things that I had done in previous matches was of testing was that I had added some tech cards to deal with certain situations I didn't have an answer to. But one of the things I realized is that I might not necessarily need so much by the way of tech cards if I can just close the game out faster. Um, that's also a way to win against another deck that's pretty broken, right? If you can pull off the cool stuff that you're trying to do before they can pull off what they're trying to do, then frequently it doesn't matter necessarily that you can't shut them down with a silver bullet. You can just overwhelm them with control elements. So with that in mind, I decided, for now at least, to cut the pithing needle that I was previously using and I replaced it with Sarah Ascendant. Sarah Ascendant's a card that I completely forgot about. Haven't used it in a very long time because in a 30 life format with 10 fetches and pain lands, you're going to immediately drop below 30 life in this deck. And so Sarah Ascendant, off of a fetch land for Tundra doesn't work out too well most games. But at 40 life, there's some padding there. So even if you don't draw it right away, quite frequently, it's still going to be a gigantic threat that provides you with a ton of defense and also pressure against planeswalkers, as well as this being a good card that you want to see in your opening hand. So I love when you have power cards that reward you for being in the opening hand. It allows you to pressure even combo and control. It gives them less turns to go off. And if they're using life totals, for example, if they're using cards like I'm using, Necropotence and so forth, to go off, then it just makes things a little bit harder for them if you get that early Ascendant out. The other reason I like it, though, is because I now have even more uses for my life total in this deck. And so although there will be situations where the Ascendant is just a 1-1, same is true for Weathered Wayfarer, and I'm running that. Uh, but um, but because I have more uses of life, having access to potentially gain more life in a game means that I have a little bit more resources to play with, and I think that's a good thing. So Sarah Ascendant's in there for now. But if it turns out that I just can't get by without having that Pithing Needle Silver Bullet target, then that may be the slot that gets cut. The other card that I considered for this one-drop slot is Goblin Welder, and I'll kind of show you why in a second. I'm not 100% sure how I feel between Welder and Ascendant. I do know that in my opening hand, I'd much rather have an Ascendant. Welder lets me do some crazy things somewhere in the mid game, typically, but it does require some setup, and there may not necessarily, that setup may not come about. One of the advantages of Welder, of course, is that I can use it in conjunction with Breya or Breya's tokens, and you can do some pretty gnarly things spinning through that combination of like sacking Breya, for example, to put something else into play, letting Breya go to your graveyard, like sacking at the end of their turn, and then on your turn sacking a flyer to bring Breya out, and now you actually have +1 flyer plus the thing that you wanted to get out of the graveyard. The other thing you can do that's really cool with Welder is you can weld in a Winter Orb. You can weld out a Winter Orb at the end of their turn, then untap all your mana and weld a Winter Orb right back in. For those reasons, I am drawn to the card, and that's another option to replace the Ascendant. Perhaps I don't want to be quite as reactive as Pithing Needle, but I find that Ascendant doesn't really do it for me, then that's something I could swap out. So we're going to see. But for now, I'm going to leave the Ascendant in there because I do actually very much like the pressure that it gives me against a little bit slower decks, and I like the fact that it protects my life total so that I can take advantage of it later against decks that are trying to do large amounts of damage to me. So we'll see. Anyhow, the next change that I made though was multiple. So I have BolaS's Citadel now as an additional payout card that just wins the game. I actually currently took Treachery out of the deck. I put BolaS's Citadel in the deck. Here's kind of the deal with that. Treachery absolutely will win games, and of course it's great with Winter Orb. If you have the mana to play it, you can get your lands untapped afterwards. But there's a couple things with Treachery. It can win you a game, but it requires a certain type of board to do so. I'd very much like the card in the deck, But if I contrast that to BolaS's Citadel, if it resolves, I'm pretty sure, like not, I've never resolved it without winning the game. I can say I have resolved treachery without winning, but I've never done so with BolaS's Citadel. I think it's just a much higher threat. So perhaps treachery belongs in a deck with Citadel. It's certainly powerful if you can play it off a Citadel and then you get a bunch of mana back because you're paying 0 to put it into play. But I don't know if that's where I don't know if the format really fits treachery so much right now. And I had to make cuts somewhere, so we'll see. I mean, I suppose it could be the Ascendant as well, but mana curve is a thing, so we'll see. But for now, I have Citadel in here, and Citadel is just totally insane. The thing that wasn't really registering for me was that the card is an artifact. I mean, I look at it and I see an enchantment, but it isn't. And that's hugely important because what it means is that if I run Transmute Artifacts, which I've been wanting to run in Breya off and on for a long time, but if I run Transmute Artifact, I can play Breya on 4 mana. I do not need a land drop. And for 2 mana plus 2, so for blue 2, I can sack the Breya on the next turn and go get a 6-drop. And in the past, the 6-drops, there were some decent ones, but there was nothing on the power level of this card right here. Citadel is utterly insane. So you can get games where you just get an early Breya out, transmute the Breya away on the next turn, and then you just basically just won the game. And that's kind of stupid. I honestly think that, once again, I don't think that the cards, I don't think that BolaS's Citadel, Necropotence, I don't think that Bargain, I don't think that Grizzlebrand, and I don't think that Ad Nauseam, anything that lets you pay life repeatedly to get an effect like that. At least Sylvan like is slow, and Confidant are slow. But anything that lets you just do it over and over on the same turn, I think all of them should be banned from a format that has greater than 20 life because 20 life they're super broken, but they're totally not designed for a 40 life format. However, they aren't banned, so here we are. I've got Necropotence and Citadel in a deck running Dark Confidant too, and Toxic Deluge, right? Crazy, but it works. And like I said, Sarah Ascendant occasionally will pad, give you a little extra life to play with. But even if it doesn't, and you just pay 1 mana to get Sarah Ascendant off the top of your deck, like you hit it with the BolaS's Citadel, and you just pay 1 life to put a 1/1 into play, who cares, right? I mean, if you've already got Citadel out, you already won at that point. And the Ascendant can be skull clamped anyway. So overall, Citadel totally insane, and this card very powerful, and this card super super powerful. So the fact that you can transmute into a Winter Orb and lock somebody out, or get a Shackles or a Sword, get a Crucible lock going, go get Lotus for more mana, or Citadel and just win the game, I think makes transmute good enough to be playing. Breya is basically, if you have an artifact commander, then transmute artifact probably belongs in your deck. And that was one of the lessons that I learned from the attempt to play with Golos, was just how good Transmute Artifact was. And while in that deck at 5 you had Golos, and then you could very easily transmute into the Ori, which Chromatic Ori, this card right here. And that card's an insane target, and I certainly wouldn't mind having it in here. Truth of the matter is, if you go get BolaS's Citadel, you kind of got like a Channel and a Necro fused onto one card, and you don't need Ori, and you certainly don't want to pay 7 life to put an Ori into play if you've got Citadel running. So I think probably your deck should run one of these 2 cards, but I don't necessarily think that you should run both of them. Ori's sort of like what you can do when you don't have access to black. For example, if your commander was, white, blue, red, or something. Anyhow, the other thing that I've done is I added a new card, Thieving Skydiver. So far, I've only gotten to use it once, and you're going to see it coming up. But I really like it. It did exactly what I wanted it to do, what I hoped it would do. It's super, super busted when it steals one of the best cards in the game, like Soul Ring or Crypt, something like that. But in general, it's just incredibly powerful. It flies, which means so it can carry like a Sword of Feast and Famine, to connect, or a Jitte. and it's got 1 toughness, so it will reward you with Skull Clamp. So it works with all of the equipment very, very well that we've got in here. Any equipment that you steal automatically gets equipped to it. That's also quite good. And of course, the power cards in the format it can take. So all around, I really like it. Unfortunately, it's not human, so you won't be able to play it off a Cavern of Souls and get an uncounterable Thieving Skydiver, but for all the upsides, I think that's probably worthwhile. So the card is in here for now. This card definitely belongs in Nin, 100%, no questions asked. And there's a couple of other commanders where that's probably the case. I would wager this card absolutely belongs in Edric. I mean, a flyer and an artifact control card. So 100%, no questions asked, put it in that deck as well. Here, there's some question only because you have access to so many cards like Disenchant and VB and stuff. But I just think the upside is just so high that I basically have, what I've done is I've actually taken out some more of my artifact mana, but I put Thieving Skydiver and Transmute Artifacts kind of like in the artifact mana slots. I took out the Treachery, and I guess that's what became BolaS's Citadel. And I can't remember what I took out for the Asera Ascendant. Oh, one of the other artifact manas, only because playing like one of them seemed a little silly, and so I could just play a slightly lower curve with a higher power level. So basically what I took out was Talisman, Talisman, Talisman. Now that ultimately may not be correct, but it's worth a shot, and so far the experiment's going well. So let's take a look at what we've actually got going here. I just ran through some quick games during basically my lunch break, and I'm wrapping that up now. I kind of have I'm working on some telework requirements here, but I had a little pause in the day, and I got to get back to work. But I thought I'd throw this a video while the thoughts were hot in my mind, and you could take a look, and it should be pretty quick. All right, so I'm going to run through these games. I think one of them was actually just somebody conceded too, so it's not even a full set of games. So the first game is against Kroxa, Titan of Death's Hunger. Every time it comes into play, I have to discard a card. It has an escape clause, so and if it attacks, I discard a card. It's pretty interesting. I think this card actually seems really powerful. It actually seems more powerful. Like you could almost, if you were looking for a discard outlet, you could almost play this in like Breya or some deck like that, or maybe like I don't know, some kind of like a control deck perhaps. As a commander, it's all right, but I'm not thrilled with the colors. Losing access to blue is too much, I think. And if I want to get into those 2 colors, there's probably something else that's got to be better. That'll generate cards or mana. But as a disruption card, I really like it. Anyway, but my opponent's playing it as a commander, so I have a hand with Transmute Artifact, Demonic Tutor. My opponent leads off with this hazard that can be a land. So because of that, their land looked a little weak, so I wasteland them right away. Their next play is Graven Cairn, so I'm thinking, yeah, it was probably correct to do it. But they do hit a second land drop, so I Demonic Tutor for Mox Diamond. So the reason I normally, I go get Crypt or Soul Ring here, especially with Mind Twist in hand. But the reason I got Mox Diamond is I'm holding Transmute Artifact. So next turn I can play Breya, and the turn after that, if Breya doesn't die, I can transmute directly into BolaS's Citadel, and I don't need anything else in my hand. Like, I've got exactly 4 mana, and that's all you need to put that together. But also, like, let's say I throw out Breya, and then my opponent, like, does kill Breya, then I've got either Factor Fiction or Mind Twist as a follow-up. So I felt like this was pretty good. Even though my opponent has a creature that makes me discard, I'll throw away Vandal Blast because I haven't seen any reason to believe that I'm going to have a target anytime soon. Opponent does make me discard another card. I just throw away Factor Fiction, and why? Is because BolaS's Citadel. So now on the next turn, so I'm going to slow down just a bit. So I go ahead and pre-combat transmute BolaS's Citadel directly into play. So don't attack with Breya, so I missed out on 4 damage, but I do that because if I get equipment off the top and the mana to equip it, I will be a lot happier by doing it in this order. And missing 4 damage is not going to make a difference in this game, but missing an attack step with like a sword or a Jete or something could matter to some degree. I mean, I'm playing BolaS's Citadel, so I probably just win anyway, and take a look at this. Vampiric Tutor. Now you want to hold control every time you play a card off BolaS's Citadel that would cause your deck to shuffle the order or move because you want to be able to play instants in response to your card if it makes sense to do so. So you want to hold control, but other than that, so I Vampiric and I decide that I'm going to go get Narset. Oh, on turn 2, my opponent had tapped 2 mana. I forgot to mention, so they had suspended a Wheel of Fate. So the reason that I vamp for Narset here is that Narset will let me clear a card that might get in the way of BolaS's Citadel on this turn as I'm kind of like taking advantage of it, while simultaneously countering the Wheel of Fate, creating a problem for my opponent there. So Narset. So look at this. I pay 3 life for Narset, pay 5 life for Tezzeret, pay 3 life for Spellseeker. Go ahead and shuffle. I'm going to Spellseeker a Fragmentize into my hand. I pay 3 life for a Crucible, pay 1 for a Skull Clamp. I still haven't played a land yet, so I go ahead and play a land off the top. And I'm going to go ahead and I play a land off the top. And I think I hit a Mox Opal, which I play for 0. I get to play a Gilded Lotus. Or, no, I use Tezzeret for 0 to get a Mox Opal. And then that reveals Gilded Lotus, which is going to cost me 5 more life and jump into play. I then Enlighten Tutor. I know that I did not put Dark Confidant on the deck. Obviously, we're now entering bugged game territory. I actually get Sword of Feast and Famine on top. Put that into play for free. Tap for 3 white, equip it, and destroy their artifact. And then I get to untap all my lands, play a Teferi, and pass the turn, ready to go. There's a Wheel of Fate about to go off. I have a Mind Twist up that I can actually play at instant speed. If my opponent does something like plays Hymn to Trog or something, I'll just hymn them back in response. And this is turn 3 or 4. Like, it's my opponent's 3rd turn. And I mean, BolaS's Citadel off Transmute Artifact for Tezzeret, for Breya. It's just totally insane, right? So yeah, opponent concedes. I mean, I'm at 7, but this game is totally over. All right, so that was good for a first test. So moving to game 2. I think Rage Fist sees my commander and Rage quits. Yeah, and I was so disappointed. So opponent was playing Golos, and I was just so disappointed because look at this hand. I get to go first turn. I can vamp if I want on turn 1, but I probably wait, actually. So then on turn 2, I go land, Arcane Signet, Vampiric Tutor at the end of their turn for Transmute Artifact, of course. Turn 3, play Breya. Turn 4, transmute it, BolaS's Citadel, win the game. I was like very, very happy with that hand, but I'm not happy, honestly, with how easy it is to just do cast Breya, cast Transmute, win the game, but I am going to run it. Like I said, I really think that all the pay life cards that have those big payouts like that need to be banned. Channel should be banned, and it is. But all the others I listed, but I mean, until they are, I'm going to try to get them banned. I just have to mulligan 1, 2, 3 times, and I mulligan into this 4-card hand here, playing against Urtai the Corrupted. I'm going to be able to go first turn Serra Ascendant, though, going first, and then second turn, if I don't hit a land, or I feel like, let's say my opponent like killed Serra Ascendant, then I can go Crypt and I can Sphinx it back into play, and if they don't, and I attack and connect, I can Sphinx the fetch land back into play and try to get my mana back, so this way I'll have like pressure and some mana. So it's not a great hand, but Serra Ascendant's pretty powerful opener. And with only 2 cards left in my hand and my opponent's 8 cards in hand, my opponent looks at the Serra Ascendant on turn 1 and concedes. Apparently he looks at the Ascendant, looks at his hand, looks at the Ascendant, clicks the concede button. So yeah, it's not exactly what the deck's trying to do, but it's pretty gross, and sometimes it's just going to steal a game. And so I snag it, and we move on to the next game. And play against Great Liar. And opponent is playing Liliana. Now, if you look at this hand, normally you're thinking like, okay, we'll Mystical for Demonic, and we'll like Demonic for Necro or something. Not anymore. I'm just going to Mystical for Transmute. I'm going to play Breya, and I'm going to Transmute into BolaS's Citadel. That's the game plan. Pretty much every game has morphed from whatever this deck used to do to put BolaS's Citadel into play. Go get Transmute Artifact and Breya and just win. So I'm not going to blow the Mystical just yet because I can play it off the Coalition Relic that I drew on the last turn. And I find myself a Vamp, so even easier. Because now I have Force of Negation, Mystical Tutor, and I can Vamp for Transmute. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and charge that. I know that I'm not planning to play it this turn, so I'll just play Breya here and leave 2 mana untapped. So I can use Breya or I can Tutor plus charge. Opponent plays Liliana Last Hope and tries to kill my Thopter. So I go ahead and use Breya and kill my opponent's commander. And then I've got Mystical Tutor with I've got Force of Negation ready to go. I Mystical Tutor for Transmute, and my opponent looks at that, and I don't know if he knows what's coming or what, but just concedes. Obviously, the play is I attack Liliana the Last Hope with Breya, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, I cast Transmute. I go get BolaS's Citadel, and then I have 36 life and a BolaS's Citadel in play, plus a Force of Negation, and the game ends. It's kind of stupid. Anyway, finally I have a game against Uncle Rico. And the reason I like this set of 6 here, and I know these games are a little bit, these aren't the greatest challenges that this deck has ever faced by any means. But what I liked about this set of 6 games is that between the 6, we're going to highlight all of the cards that I brought into the deck. So you can kind of take a look at each one of them in action and decide what you think about them. And that includes the Magpie, which is going to come into handy right here. Or Skydiver, sorry, Thieving Skydiver, not Magpie. Look at that. My opponent's playing Tatyova and leads off with what should be a very problematic start, right? But actually, it's problematic all right, but not for me. Look at this insane turn. Gimme. And my opponent just went from having 3 mana to my 1 to having 2 mana to my 6. Oh, let's make that 9. Also, no hand. Game over. Thieving Skydiver busted as heck, fueling a massive Mind Twist and crushing my opponent's mana base. My opponent actually doesn't concede here, so I find a way to get rid of his indestructible and kill one of his lands, and finally my opponent realizes that, yeah, indeed this game has ended. But in truth, all that cool stuff that I did afterwards, as awesome as it was and as good as it was massively powered by specifically that Thieving Skydiver, and which of course was powered off the Soul Ring, but I could have done it off the Ancient Tomb, right? So just being able to snag my opponent's Soul Ring right there was just insanely powerful, and did exactly what I'd been hoping for. I mean, that's why it's in the deck, right? So super fun, well, for one of us, and overall, I like the way the deck's playing. It feels really good, and hopefully we'll get some more harder opponents and some more difficult decks, or whatever the case is with that. In other words, hopefully we'll get some more interesting games for you to view that I'll be able to showcase. But in the meantime, yeah, I'd be interested in what you think. So this is the talisman-free version. A little bit weaker to mana denial strategies, I think, and a little bit more prone to mulliganing and to stuttering on the draw, but massive power spike, I think. So does that make it worth it? Is it worthwhile? Should we get the talismans back in? What would we cut? Well, anyway, like to hear from you. And until then, thank you very much for watching. I got to get back to work. I'll see you next time.